Hey guys, my name is Pierre Mancuso.
And I'm Brian Koch.
And this is our countdown to Coco, where we watch and review every Pixar movie ever released ever. And today we are going to be discussing the fourth theatrical release Pixar film, The Monsters, Inc.
The Monsters, Inc., yes.
This is their first film in the 21st century.
Yeah, you're right.
Think about it. You know that we are now in the new millennium. Mm-hmm. And boy, does it show. Mm-hmm. So Brian, let's start with you, because you are always more prepared to talk about this than me. So
sure.
So what?
To put it bluntly, yeah.
To put it bluntly. So where do we want to start with this? Because there's a lot to talk about. Because this is a big turning point, I feel.
Okay, so I guess a really interesting thing is that this is the first Pixar film to not be directed by John Lasseter.
Okay.
This was Pete Docter's directorial debut. So yeah, this is the first time Pixar had another director, so then it became another really important sort of defining film in the sense of, well, can they do one? That's not... Is John Lasseter, directing it? Is that, the key?
Yeah. Is, John Lasseter, the Walt Disney of Pixar?
Right.
And then, if he's not calling the shots, can the films be good?
Exactly.
And I would go as far as to say, we'll just get this out now. Out of the four, this is the best one.
That you think this
is out of the four that have been released.
Okay.
Up to this point.
Okay.
I would say that this is the best.
Okay.
Out of those four.
All right.
You disagree.
I disagree. But that's not any, fault against it. I think it's an amazing movie. It's hilarious. It's really good. And it's very, very smart. It's just, but, by all accounts, it does prove that, they could have another director. And I think in many ways...
And have a successful movie commercially, critically, that isn't a Toy Story thing.
Yes.
Because even though people like Bugs Life when it came out, this really, hit it home.
Yes, and Bugs Life was a commercial and critical success, but in terms of, really, standing the test of time in the same way that Toy Story has. Yeah. Well, not necessarily to exactly the same degree, but, it has.
Yeah.
And I think, definitely, at least, as the years go, I would argue that, even, each movie Pete Docter makes gets, better and better. I think in many ways he's the best director, at the studio. So it is really interesting to sort of then see his first film and kind of get, this first, perspective of a different, author, I guess. Yeah. At the studio. Because I guess,
Correct, so, to this point, it's very John Lasseter movies.
Right.
We're having a new, auteur vision, so to speak.
So, I guess, let's keep it to Monsters, Inc. in terms of, let's, all the movies that have been released so far. So what about this do you think, distinguishes, Docter's style from Lasseter's?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of this might come back to the script, which isn't necessarily a Lasseter versus Docter thing.
Yes.
But I think, to start, we talked about scope. And we pretty much bring that up every single time. The scope keeps getting bigger. Mm-hmm. If we raved about Toy Story 2, how oh my god, the scope is so much bigger and the adventure.
Right.
This one is it makes Toy Story 2 look like it was set in like a shoebox.
Yeah.
This
right.
This is all over the place. And I was shocked. I mean, it's not like I thought it took place over more than 2 days, but it only takes place over 2 days. Mm-hmm. Which I was when I heard that, I went, wait, wow. A lot happens in these 2 days, right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
And another thing I think that distinguishes it from the films that come before, and feel free to disagree because that's what makes these interesting.
Yeah,
is the first three films as great. I can talk about Toy Story 2 till the cows come home.
Okay,
right. As great as those two movies were,
yeah.
It's very much look at how Pixar makes such good movies. Oh my god, they're so good for animation. But I think this is the turning point where it's these are as good as any other movie coming out this year. Do you know what I mean?
I think for people that, as soon as they made a movie.
No. But I would disagree. I think a lot of people wouldn't say that. I think a lot of people wouldn't be Toy Story was the best movie of 1995. I think this was a turning point where people started to go holy shit, these movies, besides us animation nerds, a general movie-going public was these are as good as any other movie coming out this year.
I disagree, if only to the extent of by now then everyone's just gotten so used to it and so open that everyone's caught up to how good they are. Then yes. But like I think that like at least in terms of like the quality that they were reaching, like they were always this good and they were always deserving.
But I don't necessarily mean quality. I don't necessarily mean in terms of quality. I mean more in terms of the approach and the tone. Because this feels a lot more. When I talk about Toy Story being like adult, like having a lot of adult humor, I'm talking more about like kind of like crude or crass humor. When I said this feels like a much more mature outing.
Okay.
Both in terms of its kind of story progression. Like it's kind of up there for kids. Like it's very much about like corporate like the conflict, like the idea of like a changing industry and having to adapt in like in a corporate sense. Like that. B, I think the script is extremely sophisticated in terms of its humor, but also in terms of I think the way they handle like this isn't like adults in a kids movie having kid relationships. It feels like true adult relationships, and how they handle those things. So that's what I mean in terms of like it feels like I think an adult could relate to this more than, and I don't mean relate just like it's more like my life, but more relate as in like I feel like they're Toy Story 2 is when they started to realize like, hey, animation can be this sophisticated. Like with Jesse's whole kind of, or like a lot of like the themes of Toy Story 2. But this is where they really like nailed it. And I think where they get to their pinnacle with Finding Nemo.
So this is what I would say. And in terms of going back to this whole idea of what Pete Docter's style is and how we differentiate that from John Lasseter. And I think this does continue across all of his like forthcoming.
Yeah, I would say a lot of his films are much more sophisticated than the rest.
Well, what I would say is like he presents these really high concepts that are like really then kind of like in a sense like I don't want to say convoluted but very intricate, you know, and like in a way like sort of
because this universe is super intricately designed, which is so fun to watch,
and sort of like more like cartoonish and a little more out there. But the way that they balance that out is it's a little bit more like laid back and dry, and it's like
the dry humor is so funny.
Yeah. So like they kind of it finds like that really then sort of like interesting middle ground between like here's like this crazy idea and like all the characters are like one of the best jokes I think that's like so like just like understated is early on when they're watching the commercial and it's I'm Monsters Incorporated. Hey look, Betty. That's hilarious. It's so funny. So yeah, like I think that does lean into exactly what you were saying. This whole then sort of like relatable for adults and kind of idea of here we're presenting this workforce, these people that are on the job together. And sort of like their like, you know, their camaraderie. It's it's something that is definitely not nearly as close to kids as it is adults, and they really nail it here, and that's what like grounds the film in an interesting way.
And you know what? Even though the character designs, I guess it is inherently a more cartoony looking film.
Yes,
I would say the way they handle. When I say pacing, I don't necessarily mean of the entire film, but more like scene by scene. Okay. There's some really well designed scenes in this film. I'm trying to think out of my head. Huge thing that I would say this to you is like really good use of like knowing when to use music and when not to use music.
I see.
You know, because I think that's a huge staple of kids movies where they think, well, quote unquote kids movies,
right?
Because
that they need to oversell the emotion and
they need to oversell the emotion. Yeah. There's a lot of like letting the scene
specifically
play
when
for
the
itself.
I think is when we were talking about.
Oh yeah, because I think you know, if a lesser studio were to do it, or some would say maybe if this movie were made by Pixar today, you would have that scene.
Again, I disagree, but continue.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. That like that scene would have had some kind of musical thing. That's a long scene.
Yeah.
From once they're in the cave to when Sully sleds down the slope.
Then we get music again. Yeah.
Right. To punctuate it, I think a lesser studio would have felt unconfident, like kids are gonna get bored during this.
Right.
So we need to put something in there to like kind of keep them kind of engaged. But no, they took the risk. They stuck to their guns, and it's like scenes like that which are so. And that's where I think adults can get into it more because it feels a little more real, you know, and their interactions. Let's jump. Speaking of interactions, why don't we talk about the characters, but specifically the way I almost said Woody and Buzz. So Sully and Mike, their interaction, because it's a big hurdle because you're coming off of two big buddy movies,
right? And
now basically you have another buddy movie, an iconic duo. So it's kind of like, are they just? Well, here's the question: are they just monster Woody and Buzz?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. And like that would be so easy for them to just go to that because that's how it works. One thing that I think is really sort of integral is this is the first time I believe like Tom Hanks and Tim Allen would record like maybe like a few times together. I'm pretty sure that at least for this movie, John Goodman and Billy Crystal recorded all of their sequences together.
And
which
shows.
Is like unheard of for animation because like so often like you can't get the actors in on time, but like they really then take advantage of that, and there's a lot of like moments like when they're in the locker room and they're trading colognes like that they just completely improvised on the spot. And then they
the odorant.
Yeah, the odorant. Sorry. Yeah. So then, their chemistry then really comes through, and unlike in at least like the original Toy Story, they're friends right off the bat, and it's more about
it's the reverse actually.
Yeah. So it's like challenging their friendship and sort of like trying
as opposed to building one up.
Yeah, exactly. And putting the strain on it and seeing like what could then like drive a wedge in between them.
And Woody and Buzz in Toy Story 2 aren't with each other enough to really get anything. So this is like our first.
And when they are, it's great. But it's really it's about the two of them and their interaction, both comedically and on a dramatic level. And yeah, so it does come across differently, I think, for sure. And it's interesting in terms of like, okay, then like how far can we push it to make sure both of them stay likable? Like when is really like the breaking point for their relationship? Because I remember they talked about how like you've probably never heard this before, but at Harryhausen's when Mike takes Celia on like the date, originally they were gonna have that he was like planning to like propose. And then like it gets messed up, but they realized that was like a step too far because that would be like the breaking point of like
their friendship.
Sully, like you're like you really like messing up my life, like you're getting in the way. So the
stakes need to be a little lower. Yeah. The one time maybe in a movie where the stakes need to be a little lower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's just sort of interesting how they navigate that. But like going back to just sort of like the general like story and structure. Something that I always like talk about, like when you have a high concept for a movie, like it's so easy to just be like, wow, I thought of like this great idea, like what do the like monsters do, like when the kids aren't around, like what are they, and just completely like rely on that for the rest of the movie. But it's not just that; it's getting a high concept and telling a story within that world, which is then exactly what you need to do, and it like just shows like such a greater level of like effort and ingenuity instead of just like, all right, well, this is a pretty like clever idea, like we could like mine enough jokes from this. No, like they tell the perfect story within that world to complement the idea, which is crucial.
Oh yeah, definitely, because like exactly like you said, this could have just been like scene after scene, gag after gag, just like isn't it funny?
Right.
We're on the other side of it now with the monster, right? With
and it's just like maybe like completely focusing on the rivalry of like who could get the scare record, like not even engaging with.
Like this is definitely like a story that doesn't naturally come out of the concept,
right?
That's what makes it so interesting, is that like it doesn't naturally just automatically go, oh, but what if they find a kid and want to bring her home? Like this,
and is also the whole thing of the energy crisis. Like that's not even like ingrained to like the initial like real like concept. And
because I guess from the beginning you need to figure out why do monsters. If we're gonna spend the whole time in like the monsters world, we need to figure out the strong motivations why they do what they do.
Right, and it's their best world building so far because of that. Because we get a sense of like, okay, then like here's the TV, here's like Monstropolis, the location. Yeah. Where they eat, what do they do for fun, like
I was obsessed with this whole kind of like world as a kid, like like I love like when they're walking on the city streets, just walking around, seeing all like the way the different monsters. I still don't really understand when the kids are playing like basically jump rope with their tongue, and there's the monster with just the eye. How does he fit in there? Does he ever come out? Is there a secret door? It's like a big thing, but it just looks like a.
What I always thought about is the guy who's like collecting the garbage and then he just eats it and then he eats his dustpan. I was like, what? Does he just do that every day? Like, what's going on?
That's not his job. That's lunch. That's just him.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
But yeah, the movie is structured super well. I wouldn't say it's as fast paced as Toy Story, because 15 minutes into Toy Story, we're already at like where Woody tries to murder Buzz.
Right.
Whereas in this movie, 15 minutes in, we're still kind of like in Act 1. So it's structured a little differently, but in those 15 minutes, we're getting so much information that is going to pay off, not just in a, oh, I remember that, but in a like important story way.
Which I think that is a direct result of sort of like the laid back tone that they go for, which like Toy Story does have like some of that with stuff like they're in the staff meeting and whatnot, but like with Monsters Inc. it really like seeps into the dialogue pretty like inherently and like
let's talk about the dialogue. The dialogue I think is probably when here's the thing that people always forget, like when you talk about writing in a film, people always think it just means like what people are literally saying.
Right.
But I think writing encompasses, structure,
yes,
thematic elements, as well as dialogue
action,
and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But let's just think about dialogue for just a second. There are probably better written Pixar movies, but I think this might have the best dialogue.
It's very funny.
In any it's probably the funniest Pixar movie. I'm hard pressed to think
I think that's fair to say for sure.
I'm hard pressed to think of any other Pixar movie that's funnier, or even this like in the same category of funny. I think maybe the original Toy Story, because it's a very different thing, and we've talked about this.
Yeah.
I think you see a shift in Finding Nemo, a good shift.
Yes.
I want to make clear a good shift, where this idea what I'm trying to talk about, like where people start to really treat these as movies and not just things, is really in Finding Nemo.
I can see. Yes. Because it's less wall-to-wall jokes and more like, okay, then we're really then going to establish the atmosphere and such, yeah.
That's why I think this Monsters Inc. is probably one of the, we haven't gone through, but it's probably one of their best. I think top 5. Because you have that balance of it's right in the middle of that transition.
Okay.
Between, like, we want to, like, go for the gold here, like, really, like, make a film that, like serious film critics will be like, it's not just, like, good fun and good animation, but, like, really, really, really good.
Yeah.
But also really funny. Like, it reads like a Howard Hawks movie, right? But with the emotional sincerity of, like an art house film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they just put that on the cover.
Okay.
It sounds like Howard, because
all the 6-year-olds will like snatch it off the cell.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because and I reference Howard Hawks specifically because that very snappy 30s screwball.
Yes, I see that.
Kind of dynamic, which has become very prevalent in. You see it a lot in like 50s like musicals, like Singing in the Rain has a very similar style.
Yeah.
And then it transitioned very well into theater. So this is a very it feels like a lot of the dialogue would work really well on stage.
You know what's interesting? I feel like then in terms of like this notion of like wall to wall jokes and really like going for it like comedically, like how many like laughs can like we squeeze in per minute. I feel like though Pixar isn't going for that as much anymore. You know what studio is going for? It's probably Warner Brothers Animation these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, with like the Lego movies and Storks and how they they're really then going for again like this very like sort of these cartoonist ideas and like some of like the casual humor. So that's really interesting. And I really then thought about that before. But yeah, I guess that's sort of where that then.
Because I think Pixar now is more focused on what really made them successful, which is probably the Finding Nemo period onward, which is really, really like became like the a powerhouse,
sincerity and
right? And which is so now that's more the focus with the jokes here and there. But I would regardless of what you think of their quality, I wouldn't say that the Pixar films of the past, let's say that we basically there's 2 eras.
Okay.
There's Toy Story to Toy Story 3, and then Cars 2 onward, essentially, right?
Yeah.
For better or for worse. I wouldn't say that second era really has any like bona fide comedies. But still emotional story because it's not like this movie. I would disagree that it's wall to wall.
I guess
jokes.
Cars 2 is a full on comedy.
I get because it's funny about that.
Well, but I mean, like what it was intended as.
Okay. For those of you just for reference, I have not seen Cars 2. That and Brave are now the 2 I have not seen, and Cars 3.
And Cars 3, yeah.
And Cars 3. I forget Cars 3 like exists. To be honest, I forget. But I think this movie has a lot of good. So it's like, oh my god, like we thought the Jesse scene was like, was tough. Like when Sully has to say goodbye to Boo, like
that's really good.
It's so good because it's so like. You see her excitement and she's like showing him all the stuff and he knows what he's there to do. Like when Ross says we're gonna do the door, you're just like, oh,
that's the way it has to be.
That's the way it has to be. I really don't understand why.
Well, you know what's so like magical about it, or rather like the lack thereof. Once it comes to Boo, then going up to the door after he leaves, opening it, it's just a regular closet. That's such
what a fearless scene.
It's so like because it's both like of course like on like in its most base form, just okay, well yeah, like because like the door is erased, it's gone, it's been shredded, but it's also just like the kind of this idea of like there goes like the movie's ending, the magic is fading away back into the real world. Audience, you know.
And also I would say they don't milk it for everything it's worth. Like it's very understated, as we've said, for like a lot of the humor.
Okay.
In this sense, it's very like it could have had a big thing like her opening the door and her being like really upset, right? It's just her. She opens it, looks confused, and then we get a shot just from behind her, just looking at the empty thing, and then the door getting crushed.
Yeah.
Super
The confusion
risky.
is sadder than just like because then it's like lasting. It's not like she immediately understands. Oh, he's gone. It's like, oh, what happened? That's sadder. Like
Exactly.
Okay.
So I would say that's what I mean when I say this movie is like really sophisticated. I think more so than I think the previous three up to this point. Toy Story 2 is very sophisticated.
So here is my question to you. So then you are then saying that is a better scene than When She Loved Me in Toy Story 2.
No. I don't necessarily mean that. I just mean that I think they're getting better at their emotional.
So a better scene.
No, I don't mean that. But but that's not the only scene in the movie that has like this emotion. Like I think there's a lot more emotional scenes in this movie than Toy Story 2. I mean, on the whole,
really?
not
You think so?
Yeah, I think the scene where him and Buzz, Jesus Christ, him and Mike are arguing in the cave, and he's like, "What about me? Don't I matter?"
I don't know. Like I think Toy Story 2 has more emotional moments because I feel like in Toy Story 2 there's less many like less scenes than need to.
Well, you know what I would say? You know what I would say?
Yeah.
Is I do not think.
Yeah.
The scene in Toy Story 2, Jesse's like song, like When She Loved Me, is emotionally manipulative. I don't think that.
Well, yeah.
No. But I don't think that. But someone dumb could accuse it of being that, and there are grounds for it because it just happens. And it's basically just like watch it. Whereas in this movie, there's no possible scene where like everything's very subtle and understated.
But it doesn't just happen because it's established, and we talked about them.
What I mean is that like you have a scene.
There's I think I know what you mean. There's like a specific standout scene that everyone can point to and be like, aha, that's where they emotionally manipulate.
That's what I mean. Whereas this movie doesn't have any. So they're getting better at integrating it into the story slightly more effectively, because I love the scene with Jessie and When She Loved Me, but I have a feeling if you really tried, you could have gotten some of that across without a 2.5 minute silent scene set to a really sad song. I love it, but there could have been a way where you could have gotten that information across in a different way.
Right.
That's what I'm saying about this movie. I think it's a little more like, okay, we're gonna really integrate into the story, like keep the story moving forward, but like still have those moments. It doesn't mean better or worse. I'm just saying they're getting a little better at really just kind of having it there, because it's better for the audience if it's not just like sad. Yeah. It's a little better if we kind of have to like again, we're jumping all over the place here, but like in Finding Nemo, when Nemo, I mean, I wouldn't say this is an emotional, crying, sad moment, but it's really, really mature and sophisticated, and we'll talk about this when we get to Finding Nemo.
Right.
When Nemo's stuck in the little thing, and the what's
in the tank, you mean?
In the tank with the little tube, the little penis-looking tube.
Okay.
And what's
Mr. Phallic? Okay.
And what's the name of the Willem Dafoe's fish?
Gil.
He comes out and he goes, "I have a bad fin." And he says something like, "What is it? Never stop me."
Never stop
me. And then you see, and you just see him, his thing all fucked up, and then you know. You go, oh. I would say that's an emotional crying scene, but I think that's a really mature, sophisticated way of doing that. That's what I'm saying. This movie, you start to see more of a progression to that.
Right.
So that's my point. Not better or worse in terms of emotion. But I'm saying I think they get a little better at integrating it. I think.
Okay. Well, this is the thing that then I would say then about it, because. I think dwelling on it is fine. It's just like what I was saying before.
Fine.
Yeah, no, I know. But like in a sense, like better, like that. Then it's like we're really then having to confront those emotions. But also just like what I was still trying to say before is that Toy Story 2 has then more scenes that are like early on than when Woody solved, and then we just end on then like everyone's sort of reaction to that. I think that movie has like more of those like moments scattered throughout. Yeah. But the main point I guess then I'm trying to make here, which again I'm really then I adore both scenes, but since I'm putting them head to head now, thinking about okay, thematically and what the movie is overall trying to say and get across. Jesse's song really does present a very then strong emotional antithesis to the film, in the sense that this is what happens and that kids outgrow you, and maybe this isn't what your fate is supposed to be, Woody. Maybe you should come to Japan. this and this is a legitimate reason why, to the point that not only Woody is convinced, but the audience is convinced. Whereas here, like, in this, it's definitely very sad, but, like, sort of, I guess, like, the core theme of Monsters, Inc. is this notion of, like, okay, so we shouldn't then judge based on, like, what then we think like is the case, and be willing to, like, open up to people. Maybe, like, kids aren't scared. Like, that's what that's all then trying to get across. And that scene doesn't really, like, challenge that notion so much as it's just, like, okay, well, then it's very sad that these two characters that we really care about are separating.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I will concede that maybe Toy Story 2 deals with, like, more interesting emotional quandaries, so to speak. But I think at the end of the day, this movie makes people more sad than Toy Story 2.
Okay.
I think like, basically a parent, again, dealing with parenthood. Again, basically, these Pixar people, they need to, like I guess when all their kids grow up, all the movies, like, okay, well, you're not gonna talk about parenthood anymore.
But of course that makes sense, because that's, like, I mean, if you want to connect between kids and adults, like, you're gonna do.
I'm saying that I think this hits people harder, because basically seeing a parent and a kid have to separate, I think is more. It just hits something a little more primal, I think. Okay. So I think
I totally understand that.
I think for you and I, the Toy Story 2 stuff is more intellectually stimulating. But I think we took a poll, like, what movie hits you more in the feels? It'd probably be Monsters, Inc. Also, another interesting thing to bring up is, I think this is hyper specific, but I think for our generation specifically, I think this movie is like people might like other Pixar movies better, but I have a feeling this one might be, like, the most fond of people in our generation. Okay. That's a Toy Story, and the reason why is because people in our generation were about 4, 5, or 6 when this came out in theaters. So this is one of the first ones, one of the first Pixar movies we saw in theaters.
Right.
Or at least remember seeing in theaters. Like, I vaguely remember seeing Toy Story 2, but I like distinctly remember seeing this movie.
And it didn't get played as much as Finding Nemo, to the point that, like, people, like, got sick of it and kind of, like, were for granted Finding Nemo. Yeah. And of course Incredibles, then, like, you have to then kind of revisit to, like, more, like, fully appreciate. Yeah.
Like this, I get, like, a certain feeling watching this movie that this is complete personal circumstance, and, like, this should not be a measure with which to judge a film, but, like, I get just a weird feeling watching this movie, more so than any other.
Incite emotions, so that's
I don't mean emotions. I don't mean emotions. Yeah. I mean some other, like, I don't want to say nostalgia, like this weird. I don't know even what it is. I'm trying to physicalize it.
But if it wasn't good, then you wouldn't still, like, get that.
No. I'm just saying that when I watch it. No, but I do get that feeling sometimes with movies that I know aren't good, but, like, I saw at such a young age.
I think it is nostalgia, but it's just, like, something about it that.
I remember seeing this with my grandmother. I remember. I think I saw it with my parents, but then I saw me and my sister went with my grandmother. It was 2001, right? Yeah, she would have still been alive.
Yeah, Toy Story 2 was my first in the theater, and I've seen everyone in the theater since with my family. But yeah.
If you see enough in theaters, they'll give you a free ticket. If you bring your little punch card, they punch the little holes in.
But I want to give them my money to support them.
They'll be like, no money,
no money. Okay,
but
so let's see. I guess one sort of, like, this is a bit, like, offhand, but I wanted to address this. The fact that they open the movie up with a 2D animated scene is really interesting.
Which is beautiful. It's beautifully animated.
Oh, and, like, set to the that also reminds me of the wonderful score by Randy Newman. That jazzy score.
Which I know we disagree, might be, like, I think it's better than the Toy Story scores.
I would be, like, more like willing to, like, let you have that. Like, even if I don't necessarily agree, this is such, like, a fantastic score. So many different memorable, like, cues.
Because jazz is such a good, like, the Toy Story movies kind of have, and that in comparison, just, like, literally just observing what they did, Toy Story 2 kind of have, like, a jazzy kind of thing sometimes, but this is, like, full jazz piece, like, jazz score. Right. And it's so fun, like, with drums and, like, the because it gives such an energy, because this is so much like this isn't an adventure film, this is like a. It's like a heist, but they're not stealing anything.
I go so far as to say the score, like, really, like, sells the movie, like, to the point that, like, okay, like maybe, like, the laid back sort of, like, dialogue and energy, like, wouldn't necessarily, like, mess with, like, kind of, like, the crazy, like, visuals and circumstances we're seeing, but the score, like, brings it all together, kind of, like, in this strange way, and also, like, it's probably Randy Newman, at least as far as, like, the Pixar films go, like, maybe, like, his most, like, distinct score in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Because this is his last one until Toy Story 3, right? Or no?
Last one till Cars. The first Cars.
Oh, he did Cars.
He did Cars.
Okay.
Didn't do Cars 2, but did Cars 3. Yeah.
He did Cars 3.
Yes.
Okay. You know what I wonder? was the reason to do jazz was because like in the 60s jazz was associated with like business, like think like Mad Men, or maybe. like think like Has Succeeded in Business Without Really Trying.
Yeah,
like maybe that's why like jazz was always associated with like company, like the company.
Well, also this
way,
is,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
let's remember this is a movie about energy, like in and of itself, and jazz, like just
has a lot
so
of
much
energy
to it. So I guess that kind of makes sense.
Maybe, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. So then, but yeah, it was just interesting that they opened it with two
very stylistic. So probably the most stylistic. I would say the most stylistic Pixar score.
Yeah. Okay.
Because every other Pixar score is kind of fit into a very similar genre, like very like movie score.
Right.
Whereas this is probably the most like stylized, because you see it now with something like Birdman. Also has like a jazz kind of score, which also kind of gives it an energy. Whiplash, of course. So it gives a little more like it's a little more niche.
Yes.
So I would say this is probably the most stylized Pixar score.
Sure.
And then there's something else like I'm waiting for them to do a really cool. Well. Maybe The Incredibles. The Incredibles still feels. I wouldn't say it feels generic, but I wouldn't say the Incredibles score is as memorable. Memorable. But I wouldn't say it's as memorable.
Right. Well, it's meant to like fit into that sort of Mission Impossible, like James Bond, and sort of like.
Which Robert, funny enough, went on to do Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah, and he made the best Mission Impossible movie that there is. But yeah, just to like close off the thoughts on the opening scene, the fact that then they did that because they knew sort of like the first scene with the monster, who of course like ends up it's just orientation, but the monster like scaring the kid. They knew that would be like come across as really frightening, and of course it's really important for like the opening of your movie to get across like what the general tone of like the rest of it's gonna be. So like the credits like do that in a really like nice quick way. Like, it lets you know it's a fun movie, like, don't worry about it, like, we're here to have a good time, and then,
So then when you're watching the scary bit, you're like, okay, it's okay.
It's fine, it'll be okay.
I'm a 35-year-old man and I'm quivering, but it's okay, it's not going to be scary for the rest of the movie.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, let's talk about the fact that this competed at the Oscars for Best Animated Feature.
The first time
that the award was... it
was the first time the category existed.
The first time the category existed. And the three films that were nominated were this...
There's only three.
Yes, it was this, Shrek, and do you know the third one?
No.
Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Not terrible picks. Jimmy Neutron's not great, but it's okay. But like, it's not a bad inaugural year.
Yeah.
There were worse years for animation.
Right. And then, of course, Shrek won. So,
and that's interesting.
Yeah,
because I think Shrek was extremely popular and still is, but I feel like Monsters Inc. has
endured more.
Well, maybe not though. I really don't hear a lot of people talk about Monsters Inc. If you bring it up, people are like, oh, I love it. People know.
But Shrek is a meme now. That's the thing.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Shrek, but like, what's
Shrek 2 is better.
Oh, well, Shrek 2 is much.
What year did Shrek 2 come out? 2004.
2004. And it competed against The Incredibles and Shark Tale.
Incredibles won.
Incredibles won.
Okay.
Pixar won up until Cars.
Yeah.
But like Monsters Inc. Like with each passing year, it becomes all the more apparent that Monsters Inc. sort of won. Like when you're like really close to the time period, then like Shrek was then like such like it's like.
And I love the original Shrek too.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah, but like like everyone was really then high on this idea of like it's like this postmodern like look at fairy tales like this deconstruction.
Very subversive.
Like this hero, very subversive. That this like unconventional hero. He's not like a handsome guy. This ugly ogre. But like for all of those then sort of things that could flaunt. It does, especially compared to Shrek 2, which is definitely a superior sequel, if you ask me, and I think most people would concede that. It does have like more like conventional elements in the sense that like okay, like then in the end, then Shrek thinks that like Fiona's then talking about him when she says like about like an ogre, and then he's like, oh, I'm like ugly, blah blah blah. Everyone like
it's like I'm ugly,
around, And it's like so, and by now I think like. There have been like a lot of movies that made across the Monsters Inc. still feels fresh, and not just because they didn't make a million sequels and spin-offs and TV specials and the way they did with Shrek, but just because there aren't as many movies that were then going after like the same sort of ideas and the same like here's like celebrities and Eddie Murphy is a character. Oh my god, like it's those ideas aren't novel anymore. Monsters Inc. is still novel in the best way.
Because it's hard to remember because I was 4.
Yeah.
But, I wonder how much do they really put... Because Pixar, in a similar way, has really top-notch, star-studded casts.
Yeah.
But how often do they really, even today, do they really push that? Like, you almost just have to know so-and-so is in this movie, and then you're like, oh my god. Like, they didn't put, there was a lot of people, I think, in Finding Dory that I was like, I recognized that voice. Like, they were famous people.
Yeah.
Particularly, I don't even know her name, but the woman who plays Dee in It's Always Sunny. Right? They don't like really advertise that because it's more about the movie itself. Like, they're not trying to get you in. They're really trying to sell you more on Pixar. Pixar is the star. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You know, I'm gonna make a big claim, and I want to see what you think.
Okay. Caitlin Olsen was her name.
Caitlin Olsen.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes.
I was trying to think that. Yeah.
Aside from 1995,
okay.
You know, which is incredibly crucial because it's like, you know, the first time a CGI fully computer animated film is released. Aside from 1995, I would say 2001 is, and maybe this might come out of ignorance because I just don't know enough, so correct me. It could be, if not the most, one of the most important years for CG animation, specifically because you have, so let's look at those three movies that were nominated. You have Monsters, Inc., Shrek, and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Right. Similarly, in 2008, with the superhero movie genre, you have two films, The Dark Knight and Iron Man, that completely reconfigured the genre, and then basically every other movie, they both came out the same year, and basically every other superhero movie,
it's trying to be that or that,
either that or that.
Okay.
Similarly, in that year, you have three kind of archetypal CG animated films that we still kind of are feeling the residuals of today. A Pixar-style film, you know, like a lot of heart, good animation, great characters. Then you have something like Shrek, like kind of a little more wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the adults.
And here's our celebrities.
And I don't mean any of these comments in a negative or positive way.
Right.
Like, you have like a more like subversive, trying maybe to get a little more laughs out of the adults. Animated film, and then you have something like Jimmy Neutron, which shows that it doesn't need to be one of the two big animation studios to get into the business. Because at this point, it was like, because this process was so expensive and so new that it was like Pixar could do it because it was being backed by Disney, and DreamWorks could do it because the kind of Spielberg and Katzenberg, right? Wow, Jinx, show me soda. Whereas with Jimmy Neutron, it kind of proved that like you can have other. I mean, now how do we see with Illumination? Right. We see with Blue Sky?
For better or worse. Worse with Illumination.
Illumination, Blue Sky, Warner Brothers. You know, the list goes on.
Sony even. Yeah.
Sony, that's right. So I would say, I mean, can you think of a year where there were years with better animated films, but like, can you think of a year that was such a, like, as influential perhaps? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
probably like not as influential. I do remember, like, for whatever reason, 2006 was a year that had a lot of like CG animated movies that were coming out of the woodwork, because then you started getting like not only stuff from like DreamWorks and Pixar, but you got like your Monster Houses and your Ant Bullies.
It was the year before, but now Disney itself was in the CGI game with Chicken Little the year before. So like basically 2D animation, save for The Simpsons, and then Prince of the Frog has basically.
Lilo and Stitch did well too. But
I mean in like the 2005, 6, 7 era. I mean, have there been any other 2D animated films since Simpsons movie and Prince of the Frog? Like big ones, like commercially, like theatrical release.
Well, I mean,
they're on Japanese.
Winnie the Pooh was in 2011.
I always forget about Winnie the Pooh.
The SpongeBob movie Spawns Out of Water in 2015, which of course was mostly marketed as a live action CG film, despite it being like hand drawn for up until like the hour mark. You know? But like it really there hasn't been much. I'm sure then like the tide will change again. But yeah, like back in like 2001, Disney's then putting out Atlantis: The Lost Empire, which. Is
that their film against Monsters, Inc. that year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, going off of this, we're talking a lot about like the culture of the time and not so much Monsters, Inc. But we'll get back to Monsters, Inc.
Sure.
But like, it's so interesting to watch Pixar's
rise.
Rise.
Yeah.
Because it's so amazing how they were able to churn hit after hit after hit, and not just hit. Like, people like them. They stand the test of time.
Classics.
They're classics, right? Instant classics. Whereas Disney, who had been doing that the decade previous, is now releasing, you know, sorry if you're big fans of Atlantis, didn't do well. Objectively, it did not do well commercially or critically. Sorry. Yeah. So, and neither, Emperor's New Groove kind of did. Lilo and Stitch did, but
then you have your Treasure Planet, you have your Home on the Range,
and these aren't necessarily bad.
Yeah,
Treasure Planet's pretty good. Lilo and Stitch is really great.
Yeah.
Emperor's New Groove, people really like. It's hit or miss for me, but still they're not bad.
It's great, but that's 2000. That, but at a certain point, we really then do get into a dark age.
Yeah,
but yeah,
but anyway, let's go back to Monsters Inc.
Let's go back to Monsters Inc. Okay, so I guess we
talk about the animation maybe.
Okay, sure. Let's talk about the animation and how much that obviously Flores, as you said, we're in a new millennium. It's so amazing how much they're able to do. When you look at the Sully's fur, all the individual strands of hair, and the fact that when they're banished and when he's then trying to get back and he falls into the snow and they have the snow all over his head, oh my god,
a rendering nightmare probably back in 2001.
I'm pretty sure they told their animators if you could maybe then try to do and they didn't even know if they would be able to have the fur move and stuff, but they really, it's amazing what they're able to accomplish. And of course the iconic, oh my god, why isn't this a ride door chase sequence?
Oh my god, that's so... If you thought the scene in Toy Story 2 in the airport...
With baggage claim, yeah.
Was intense, right? Oh my god, it's so much more, the scope is so much bigger. It's basically the same sequence in a way. In a way,
yeah.
But oh my god,
all these things we need to open a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. I was obsessed with the mechanics of how those doors worked.
Yeah.
And if the door is falling, but you're you house, whereas you open it up, is your house moving? You feel it shaking, or is it just you see? This swirling
and they really in a short period of time they take advantage of so many then different ideas, and they jump in and then whoop, the orientation changes, or they jump in when it's about to crash and go into another. Oh my god,
there's a great part when they go to Hawaii and he goes, why would we be banished here?
Yeah. That's excellent.
But the animation, I think from the very first scene, it's interesting how they start with a 2D section. Immediately when we get to the very first scene, the scaring scene, where we see that kid, or what turns out to be an animatronic of a kid.
Right.
I remember saying to you, we were watching, kind of guessing, going oh my god, the animation's already it's a huge leap forward from Toy Story 2, which was a huge leap forward from Bug Life, which was a huge leap forward from Toy Story. And I think that's something, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older, but I think if I was older, I'd appreciate it more. I don't think you don't see, because I think once we get to the rendering is getting better since it's starting to look more realistic. But we've talked about on the show about at a certain point when should CGI animation stop trying to look so damn realistic. But in terms of this point, it's realistic in terms of they're figuring out mechanics and physics and how things work. You basically probably with Ratatouille or WALL-E. You stop having those huge, but probably even up to Cars. I think Cars is where it stops, huge technological jumps, so to speak. The rendering starts to get better, but I don't think there's any...
I don't think there's a bigger one than that in the sense that it's an all-human cast. There's so many different sequences and locales and so.
I think after Incredibles, you stop seeing those huge technological leaps. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think you stop...
It's just because they made enough movies that, they can,
At this point now, it's more just, how realistic can we have this environment look?
Right. And should we, if does it suit the story? And those are what becomes the questions, rather than... And then they just start, perfecting the technology from there on out. Okay, let's talk about... There's a certain sequence in the film that ended up being changed very, very last minute, after the September 11th attacks, of course.
Yeah.
And this is the scene in which the CDA then first see there's a child and Harryhausen's and Mike and Sully are running away. Mike goes, well, I don't know how that could have gone any worse. And originally there was going to be a literal explosion,
fiery plume
of a fiery explosion, and of course they made the decision to change that, and this came out in November of 2001, so not a lot of time, but they made the change. And it's just sort of interesting in the sense that with something that isn't you don't see that then too often with animated films. You'll still hear a lot these days of how there's a live action movie that's coming out that then they either they stall the release of, or they'll make edits. I remember there was after the Aurora shootings in the Dark Knight Rises screening, they had there was some movie coming out that had like a scene like with like a shooting in a movie theater or whatever, and I think they like just like deleted that sequence entirely. Yeah. But like with it, what's great with animation is that you can just like sort of then modify it like just like a little bit.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting that they
do it again with Cars too, actually, with something, and we'll get to that when we get to.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Cause I'm trying to think what happened.
It's minor, but this is too. But like
but so I think they were lucky.
Yeah.
That it was such a small thing.
Oh yeah.
Like it wasn't like so I'll explain. There's a sequence in Lilo and Stitch.
Oh yeah.
Lilo and Stitch is probably one of the biggest animated things. Well, I mean, how many animated movies need to be modified because of 9/11? Like, you know what I mean? Right. But for those who don't know, there's a sequence in the film, where because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I forget who's flying what. But there's basically a big ship chase.
And Pleakley when Lilo is taken by Gantu.
Yeah.
And then he needs
and
help.
Gantu in his alien ship, flying through like the Hawaiian landscape and mountains.
Yeah.
The original version of that sequence was flying through like Honolulu or like basically like a skyscraper city in Hawaii with like a 747, like an actual plane, and like dodging the buildings, right? Those poor animators had to completely, because they couldn't cut it because it was like part of the climax, so they had to this is 2002 or 2001, so like digitally it was much easier than it had been like 1950 something. But like still like and I think
that was even the only thing they changed. There was other stuff in Lilo and Stitch, like there were like weapons that then they replaced with like things that like weren't threat. Jeez, they really like did then a lot to like then sort of and they were like changes for the better, but like
because you know what Monsters Inc. Like I didn't know that until recently how they changed that. I don't know why it would make sense for them to blow up Harryhausen's.
Yeah.
Like it makes more sense for it to be a decontamination thing. Like it makes more sense that way. Maybe that's just because that's the way it's been.
No, I agree with you.
But like I don't understand the logic of like that joke.
It'd be cartoon logic. Like it would have to be.
Just blow it up.
Like it can't get any worse.
It's just more for the gag. But so I guess maybe in a way it worked out.
It did. I think it does make more sense, and it pushes this idea of like the toxicity more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, we kind of already touched on the concept, but what a fun idea of like the kids being, or them thinking they're toxic.
Oh yeah.
Because you get so much great humor and world building out of like the CDA. The idea of like them being afraid of the kids.
Accident-free days, and they have to then reset the counter. Yeah. No,
there's a great part when they have the 2319 and like the floor manager has to run to hit the button. It becomes a handheld like camera.
Yeah, it's like
it's like all over the place.
That was very fun.
That adds to it. Like super stylized. I think this is like a very stylized movie. Yeah. But yeah, like it's really fun. The world building in this movie is just really engrossing, for any movie. And
even like the orientation monsters, like the new one, they stink, and the Sully then has to like teach them more. There is like really and then there's an implied history between him and Water News, and of course then we have so there's a lot that then
the first act one of this movie does a lot of legwork.
Right.
We have to
establish it's Mike and Sully's friendship. This is how the world works. This is what the monsters do. Like this is the city. This is where they work. This is so much has to then get across. Like, my God.
And with every Pixar, I wish we had thought of this earlier. This could have been a segment. Is like this movie continues the Pixar tradition of wait. So if it's blank, then does that mean blank? We're basically in a Pixar movie because they're giving personality to things that normally don't have personalities. Yeah. All these really deep existential questions come up. So like you go in Toy Story, like, are they born? Are they like whatever, right? In this, it's like, okay, so do they have doors for every door in the human world?
Right.
Is it just bedrooms or is it just closets? Is it only kids? So what if a monster gets stuck? Are there contingency plans? What if you're standing halfway through a door and then the light goes out? Do you go to one or the other, or do you get split in half? Like, how do these monsters know about the human history?
I think it would just
how long have they been doing this?
If you were standing in the door, it would probably flicker out like almost like a rejection or something, and then you would just be standing there and it would be empty in front of you, probably, because now you got me thinking about these questions. So that probably. Why
are they using the Roman alphabet?
Yeah.
Like, why do they have our letter system and number system? Did they copy? Oh, here's a cool headcanon. They come from they started their own dimension.
Okay.
And then found their way into the human world, and then went back, right, and developed their civilization.
Is this all to explain the fact that Mike is able to say to Greek?
Yeah.
Yes. Because he has like the Trojan horse like idea.
Well, I mean, if there was an alternate dimension,
yeah,
I feel like that's such a big deal that we would learn about it in school, wouldn't we? Like, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
And like they didn't know about it, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We learn about, I mean, like, under the sea is kind of like an alternate dimension. We learn about fish and how like fish work and like they're like I don't want to say fish culture, but like which we will learn about with the next movie. I think we're kind of, this is probably going to be our longest one.
Yeah.
Because we're about 50 minutes in. But and I don't think we have too much to go over. But before we wrap up, we should talk about, I wouldn't say the most controversial part, but definitely the most like,
oh, what are you going to say?
Potentially debatable part of the film.
Okay.
Which is the ending.
Okay, yeah. This one.
So, you've all seen it. If you're listening to this, I don't know why you'd be listening to this if you haven't seen the film, but to reiterate, Roz, they destroy the door, you know.
Roz is number one CDA agent, which is a wonderful twist.
Was a wonderful, oh my god, such a great, which also comes back in Munster University, which is great.
Oh god, so fun.
But anyway, so they destroy the door, and then slowly realizes that laugh is more powerful than scream, right? Mm-hmm. And
which they like sort of thread very
which they thread really well, really well. And then it's revealed that Mike
put the door back together.
And they just need the last piece. And then Sully opens the door, and then the iconic last scene, the last shot where he opens the door, boo, kitty, and then he smiles. Super heartwarming. Like I don't get super tingly, but that part always just makes me feel so gooey.
Yeah.
But let's talk the merits. Does it? And I think you can. I really do think both sides to this have an equally compelling case. I don't think one wins out at the end. I think you can make either case really well.
Yeah.
Does Sully being able to see Boo again compromise the I wouldn't say the film as a whole, but at least that emotional beat of him having to say goodbye?
Right, because that's the thing. It definitely doesn't compromise it as a whole, because as I was saying before, that doesn't like get any sort of like core idea of the film. It's sad that they're being separated.
Yeah, because if you think about Monster Inc. doesn't really have a core, like, don't be an asshole. Like I mean, like, it doesn't really
no. Like what I was saying before is the core idea is like if we're setting up this idea of like, oh, then we're so scared of kids, which of course then we're supposed to relate to in the sense we're so scared of monsters. Yeah. We shouldn't like judge them for that. Everyone is It's like, so then that like that's
what lesson are we supposed to take away from this movie? I'm not really sure. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure.
Like, well, if not, then this whole idea of
laughter's better than scaring people.
Well, if not this whole idea of like don't judge based on like appearance or preconception or what society tells you, then just friends, like nothing is more important than friendship. Like to quote the Monsters Inc. / Baby Driver line.
Okay.
But yeah, like I don't think it compromised it in the sense that like, I mean, I guess like the whole point of the ending is that they managed to make the company better and change it in the ways that are necessary in order to allow themselves to get
because the way it's currently structured,
they
shouldn't see Boo. But now that it's restructured in a sense of like it's much more amicable to kids.
Yeah.
Not to kids like the audience, but kids like in this world. Hearing you talk, I actually, how you just said that they're both equally compelling? I think I figured out a reason why it works, the ending.
Okay.
Because the whole movie is kind of like I think I did figure out the thing we're supposed to take away from it, and I think it's encapsulated with the line, "That's the way it has to be." Why does it have to be that way?
Oh, okay.
Because the whole movie is very much about like the kids are toxic. Why does it have to be that way?
Well, again, I'm getting at why do we have societal conventions that we can define.
So it's kind of like because I was gonna say like. I was gonna say it does compromise it because originally I was gonna say it does compromise it because like they need to. It's about Sully being like a parent to Boo and having and needing to make that sacrifice for her well-being. But then I think of it in my head and I went, why does that help her? In what way does that help her?
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it hurts her, but I'm like, what way does it help her?
Right.
So if anything, he's like, no, Like, why does it have to be that way? Ross says that's the way it has to be, but I guess the movie's question is, why does it have to be that way? Mm-hmm. So it's basically the idea, and you see that with like the changing the scaring to the make them laugh. So I think maybe that's the
progression.
Maybe that's the like the thing we're supposed to take away from this film.
Usurping tradition.
Yeah, like not necessarily like automatically usurping tradition because it's tradition, but like questioning it.
Oh yeah,
not so much saying
being willing to question it,
being willing to go like for why. You know what I mean? Like why is that the way it is?
Yeah, no, I like.
So
that.
maybe that's so. I think that means like because they made that systemic change, then he earns being able to see Boo again. I guess. Well, I mean, what do you think? I think I've come to my own. I think I've.
No, that makes perfect sense. I totally agree with that. And I think.
And I've never thought of that actually until this very second.
Peter, I'm telling you, when we do these, we articulate things and figure them out that we never thought of before because we get into this such deep, amazing discussion that everyone loves.
Please sure to like and subscribe.
Please like and subscribe. But like. Also, like with the ending, of course, then we have to address the fact that we don't actually see Boo,
which I think is a
masterstroke, of course. Because, and I think then like Pete Docter was then talking about this and was saying that like you can't top like the best part of it is Sully's expression. So like what like you couldn't possibly give the audience anything more than that, like any higher of a note. By like showing her and like also then,
and I don't think people miss it. I don't think people go, I wish I saw Boo. I think everyone like whether they can articulate or not, like a normal movie going audience, I don't know if it would hit as much if they could see Boo. Mm-hmm. Now I wonder, is she supposed to be older because the room looks a little different? How much older is she supposed to be? And also another question: does the Monster World time,
does it go by as much?
Is it the same? Because they have the Eastern Seaboard thing, so presumably it's the same time. It's the same time progression.
Well, yeah, presumably.
How long has it been since? You have to wonder if they were to systemically like. You have to imagine there must have been some kind of investigation after the film.
Sure. I think it's been like a year.
I would say maybe a couple of years.
It could have been a couple of years.
I'm really,
but just based on
I'm really nitpicking here, but like you have to imagine like if it was the real world, there would have been an investigation, which would have gone for months, and then Sully would have had to figure out this idea works through multiple trial and error, which would probably take a few more months. And then like
this could have been a movie.
It is. It's called Mustang Laugh Floor, and you can go.
Of course.
And then they have to get people to trust the company again. Mm-hmm. Wait, because it's so successful at this point that like there had to be enough time for it to be. See, these are the rabbit hole questions. Like this doesn't matter at all.
Well, you know what? Like the way to convince the public is the fact that you're not going to have any power, so you better trust us because otherwise where are you going to get your power source from?
But I wonder how much older she is. She still sounds like
because she sounds like little, but there is like more of like a coherence to the way she says kitty. You know, yeah. So like I feel like like maybe like a year.
How old is she supposed to be?
2 years older.
How old is she supposed to be? Like 1 or 2?
Like maybe like 3.
Yeah.
Like,
because I think by 3 a lot of kids are talking a little more, like not necessarily babbling. Like by 3 you've probably said your first word.
Probably.
But you're still kind of like a little babbly, like kind of googly gook, like baby talk. Yeah. Great performance out of that little girl.
Mary Gibbs, yeah.
Barry Gibbs?
Mary Gibbs.
Not the lead singer of the Bee Gees?
No.
Did not do this movie?
Unfortunately not. That would have been an acting masterstroke.
Kitty!
No. Mary Gibbs. And Boo's real name is Mary because you could see the crayon drawings. Yeah. And they're signed Mary. And I think she drew them like herself.
Now.
And they scanned them in.
Now, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the amazing sequel idea.
Okay.
That they can't do because they
they can.
Well, they can because now it's implied that Sully and Boo will like interact more. But basically the idea.
Well, sure they can, but like just set it before that part.
No. Well, I was gonna say so. This is my idea for a Monsters Inc. sequel. Keep in mind, they should never make a Monsters Inc. sequel. But if they were to, the only way I would think I would get behind it is if it were like this. So let me pitch it for you.
Okay.
So it's set. Boo is like 15 or 16, right?
Yeah.
So the whole movie, like you're watching it and you're kind of like for a lot of it, you're like, did I walk into the wrong theater? Because it's mostly in the human world.
Yeah.
It's basically about Boo like having these like not repressed memories, but like you know when you remember something maybe from when you're like 2 and you're like, did I dream that? Is that real?
Yeah.
She keeps getting these like not visions, but like the flashback kind of like memories, like remembering like these her experiences in the first film, but she doesn't remember it because she was like 1 or 2.
Right.
So she's like trying to figure this out. She's asking her parents like, did we ever go to like a theme park? Like not Disney World, but like, did we ever go like was there like ever like costume people at the mall or something? Like she's trying to figure this out, and it's her trying to like figure this mystery out. And then halfway through the movie, she is able to get into Monstropolis.
Yeah.
And find Sully and I don't know what happens in the second half. but like the whole movie is building this mystery, and we know what it is, but it's like she's starting from scratch, and she's trying to figure out like, because Boo's so clever, so she's like, as a 15, 16-year-old, she's like super clever, really smart, talk about like needing a movie with a really strong female protagonist. This could be it. Monsters Inc. 2. But it wouldn't be called Monsters Inc. 2 though. It would be like something else, and people wouldn't know. It would be called Boo.
Yeah.
Exclamation point. Boo. 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 Well, actually, Boo is actually going to be a movie with Seth Rogen called Bureau of Otherworldly Somethings about ghosts.
Oh, but didn't that get solved?
I thought it's coming out this year, but maybe not.
Is it? I mean, I think at one point maybe it was. Is it coming out?
I saw on Rotten Tomatoes like upcoming movies.
That's supposed to have been coming out for quite a long time.
But in any case,
that's a DreamWorks movie, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah. But in any case, I think that's the way, because the issue, I think I will say, not all of them. I don't want to get into this debate now. But I say, whether you like them or not, all of the Pixar sequels, I feel, have been pretty good at like feeling very different from their original film.
Sure.
Except for one movie that I'm not gonna say because I don't.
You better not.
I'm not gonna get into it right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way you do Monsters Inc. 2 sequel. I think it has to be taken from such a different perspective, because imagine that. It's kind of like a think like Batman Beyond, but like Monsters Inc. And Boo is did you know Batman Beyond, like how like that show works?
I actually don't know too much.
Very briefly.
I've heard like plenty of it.
Very briefly, it's basically set like Bruce Wayne's like really old, like he's like an old man.
Okay.
And like this kid, I think his name, someone out there's gonna like comment and go like, "You're stupid." His name is, I want to say his name is like Trevor or like, I forget what it is. Let's call him Trevor. And he's like a teenager, and for some reason he accidentally stumbles onto Bruce Wayne's mansion.
Cool.
And Bruce Wayne, like, they meet, and then he, like, kind of explains, like, what Batman was. He's like, oh, I've heard, like, stories about this Batman thing, right? And then, like, he becomes, like, a new Batman.
To use maybe a more, like common example, I guess, like, a bit Force Awakens.
Yeah, very Force Awakens. Yeah. Imagine if Force Awakens was a bit more mysterious in the way it unravels its plot. Yeah. And that's
and it used a character that we knew, but they didn't remember, like, the rest of the... Yeah. Like, almost if it was, like, okay, then we have to, like, reintroduce, like... You know, like Luke or whatever. So maybe that's how Last Jedi is going to be. We have to reintroduce Luke back into like this world. Yeah. Like in the first half.
To the point, like I would want this movie to be to the point where like, if you almost don't even need to see the original film. Like it's so removed in the way it's presented. Like there's no nods. Like it's almost as if like, it's more fun because we know what like she's trying to come up with. But if you didn't see the original film, it's not like you're going like, that's a reference to something, but because I haven't seen the other one, I don't know what's reference to. Like there wouldn't be anything like that
up until the second half, when we get into the whole thing of now that all of these monsters then have to then work on the lab floor, the really scary ones don't know how to be funny, and they're angry, and that's my idea.
Yeah. So maybe there's a way to combine them. Yeah, maybe there's a way to combine them. But I think that's the only way. Like, they will never make this, nor should they make this. I mean, they should not make a... I'm of the mind that I think after... What's the last one? Toy Story 4?
Yeah.
If I really am of the mind, like, I hope after Toy Story 4 they really stop with the sequels. I'm really hoping. Like,
and that's what they've said.
And here's the thing is, like, even if it's like... Because most of the sequels are pretty good... But even that, it's like, I don't care if you tell me. At this point, I need something. Like, I need new, really engaging Pixar content.
Yeah.
Because the only standout new original IP from Pixar has been Inside Out. And I have my doubts if as a brand that will stand the test of time. I think the movie will, but like as like a recognizable brand, I have my doubts of how sustainable that's going to be.
Right.
Because you're already like, no one really talks about Inside Out like, oh, joy and set, like, you know, not the same way like maybe 5 years out from Monsters Inc. People were still
Mike
like,
and Sully.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. So even basically their only like their super standout film out of the past 7 years or so, isn't super. I don't think iconic enough yet. Right. Like I really want them to get back into the business of starting from the ground up. Continuing stuff is really cool and interesting to recontextualize things, but I really you've done that for about almost a decade now. At that point, it will be almost a decade. Let's flip back. If you need to do like every other decade, you go back and forth. Sure.
Okay.
So after Toy Story 4, I really just would like to see them just really stick to. They'd still do maybe sequels if you really want to, but like, I mean, at this point, what else are they gonna do sequels to?
Oh, Brave, of course.
Yeah, like Brave, Ratatouille, like what with WALL-E, like
no. I think
say that, but they could.
The first
they shouldn't, but they could.
The first thing after Toy Story 4 that if they're gonna do a sequel, what they do a sequel of is like probably Inside Out would make the most sense, of like Riley being older and exploring that. But like, let's not get too far off track with that. Let's then see, because we were talking about this a lot with Toy Story 2. Let's like address then what they did with villains this time around, because we have like kind of I guess in a similar way to Toy Story 2, we do have multiple villains. We have both Waternoose and Randall. So I guess a good question to you is that like if we're really then like try like we always whenever we try to then be critical of these movies, we have to like take 20 steps back because we're so close to them. But does this movie need both villains, and if so, why?
Randall and Waternoose. I mean, in a way, I guess in a different way, because Randall's more like on their level, where Al is like kind of like a supernatural figure. Randall kind of serves the function of Al, where like you think he's the main antagonist.
He's the misdirect antagonist.
He's like the misdirect antagonist, where really he's still an antagonistic force by the end. Still, he's still like a problem they have to solve. But then there's really like a villain revealed. You know. Again, probably one of the better examples of a villain revealed, because it's very clear, I think, the motivations, unlike Frozen, which is just... We brought this up with Stinky Pete. We already bitched about Frozen. We're not going to do it again. The boat kills me. But I think Waternoose is a really well-developed... Because you understand... You completely... Like, you don't obviously agree with it, but you completely get why he's doing what he's doing.
Because there's a scream shortage, and they need to then do something.
There's a pressure this company's been...
In the family for 3 generations, they say, yeah.
So, kind of a bad plot hole, but like, so if everyone thinks kids are toxic, why does everyone care?
I never
and then
thought
they arrest
of this before,
him?
but yeah, like I brought up this.
When everyone be like, he fixed the thing, like not humanity, but basically this is humanity. It's not like they're not human, but I wouldn't everyone if these monsters are humans in the real world, people would be like, yes, finally, screw the kids, whatever, get the energy problem is solved. So why do they care that he's gonna kidnap 1,000 children? And
so there's 2 ways that we can go with this. One, the CDA at that moment realized
that kids are okay.
Have humanity. Or 2, the CDA has known for a while. It's just that it's too deep of an entrenched idea within society that this idea of like kids being scared. Which again, like there was
but why to let his plan go through wouldn't compromise the idea that kids are toxic. It would just be a very toxic and dangerous but necessary source of energy. I don't know why would the CDA like arresting him, like if anything that just purports their conspiracy that kids are dangerous and toxic but they have a lot of energy that we can mine from them. So I don't know if that works. I think it's more the first one. I think they realized that the humans have not humanity because they're human, but like the idea of like dignity or like
it is just interesting in the sense that like I taught like I mean like not to say that these are like really like canon at all, but like I mentioned how there was like a Boom Studios comic of Toy Story with Sarge like trying to like thinking about like revealing to Annie they're alive. There was like a Boom Studios comic in Monsters Inc. that addressed that there were some monsters that still thought that like kids were toxic and that they just kind of like have to like deal with that and like there's like no convincing them. There's also one when like Sid's in it because they established that there's a Jessie doll in Boo's room. So the Toy Story world of course is connected. So they actually did a comic about Sid.
Where he's already fucked up for life because of the toys. And then the monsters scare. Oh my god.
Yeah, poor Sid. No.
So that's kind of like if I really like to nitpick, that's kind of like the only thing that really doesn't like. Why do they? It needs to happen, but like
also just like how many kids do they plan? Because he says like he's willing to kidnap 1,000 children. Like how many does he need to then get? What's like the long term sort of plan? Like who then like came up with this idea?
Do the kids die, or did
Waternoose like approach Randall for this, or did Randall come up with the idea?
I think Randall came up with the idea.
Okay, so I guess Randall came up with the idea because otherwise Waternoose probably would have approached Sullivan because he respected him more. Yeah, as he said, because Sullivan's like twice as scary you'd ever be. So
my thinking is that the CDA, because you have to wonder like, do the kids die after it, and then you should eventually run out of kids, and also like it becomes a big problem. Like this whole business is under the conceit that the parents will never believe the kids that there's a monster.
But then kids are going to start disappearing, and I think that compromises the world. Yeah.
So I think probably the best answer we're going to get is the CDA is there to protect the monster world from the children, but they don't think that humans, like the human world, they're like they don't have dignity. Like
you want to say subhuman, but
some monster, right? They still respect them as an existing like thing, sentient being.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're gonna protect you from the. You know, what'd be really interesting. We're gonna protect you from
perspective.
No, we're gonna protect you from the kids, but we're gonna protect the kids from you. So like we're there to also keep in check, like you don't go too far and like hurt them. It's all about scaring, because you don't get any screams out of slashing them. You know, you don't get any out of inflicting violence.
Maybe that's a good sequel idea. The Life of a CDA.
No, because you think about like imagine there must be like lawsuits where like monsters go too far.
Oh yeah. Right,
and they have to deal with that. So do people care? So I guess that's the only answer. Is that the CDA is like, you can't do that to the kids. Scaring them is one thing. Abducting them and like almost killing them is another.
Can you imagine if they had that layer? If it was like a Brad Bird movie, we would have that layer in the film of like monsters being like, you should kill the kid, and it's like, no, you can't kill the kid. Yeah. You know, yeah.
So that's a really interesting headcanon, I think. That's a movie. See, I'll be good with that movie as a sequel.
Okay.
I don't want to see Woody.
We got the Should We Kill the Kids movie. That's another thing. Yep. Yeah, okay. So we came up with two very inaccessible Monsters Inc.
Very sequels. Inaccessible, like no one would want to see this, but I would want to see it.
Yeah, of course.
So we're kind of running out of time here. Is there anything super specific we want to touch on before we kind of wrap up?
One last thing I guess I'd say is, like, this movie briefly touches on the idea that, like, the keeping up with the scare like there were like at least like one line of dialogue that like the scare record is something that's important to Mike, and I feel like that makes a lot more sense when you have the context of Monsters University and his scaring ambitions and how like you know they don't necessarily
vicariously through Sully.
Exactly. So they don't like thread that through.
I think that gives the Monsters University. I think that gives Monsters University a bit too much credit. Yes. But I like that headcanon. Like I like that interpretation of why he.
Yes.
I think I love Monsters University. Hello, I love Monsters University. I think give that a little too much credit, but I totally.
What I was just gonna say was I would like if in Monsters University they explicitly had Mike being like, oh, I would love to then get that scare record or whatever, you know. Which I mean maybe they wouldn't even have that. Like I feel like they maybe just sort of like implemented that system to like incentivize once like the energy like crisis was like going, which like that wouldn't have been happening yet. So maybe it wouldn't make sense for him to say that. But like yeah, like you know I like that interpretation. It like gives more relevance and like it bears. Yeah. So yeah, I guess other than
now that we watch this, I can't wait to watch Monsters University.
Yeah,
like, I kind of want to watch it like right now. I've heard people say Monsters University is better than this one. I've heard people say that.
I like once we rewatch it, let's talk about that. Yeah, I don't want to like
we want to belabor this. So I think that's all we're gonna talk about today. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening. Next time,
do we have to rank?
Oh, that's right. Well, I because I did in the beginning.
Yeah.
I would do like from bottom to top: Bugs Life, Toy Story 2, and then this. I think it's really hard to like if like they're both so great. So it's hard to like really try to like, okay, how does one edge out? But I think because you see like just objectively, they're making this is the fourth film as opposed to the third, so they're learning more, and I think that comes on screen and it shows.
Yeah,
that they've learned a lot of lessons and they're getting better each time.
For me, like the Toy Stories still have like an edge over it, but like as a comedy, this is like quite arguably still to this day like their funniest film. Yeah, I'd put it right under that and like above A Bug's Life. You know, we've had then a great then sort of like slate so far, like all like you know like really good to amazing movies. So yeah.
So how would you rank it from bottom to top?
Yeah, so A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc., Toy Story 2.
Really, you put both Toy Stories above this?
Yeah,
even the original Toy Story.
Both Toy Stories. Yeah, no, I think so because I think both like are more like at least for me like concerned with then like the storytelling and the characters, and then really then furthering like you know like sort of the plot and like everything in them is then sort of connected, whereas Monsters Inc. has like you know like a bit more like meandering, a bit more like superfluous elements, and like focuses more on like the comedy, is willing to like stall the pacing a little bit more, which is still great and I love it and that's fine, but like that's just why like you know like the Toy Stories are like my favorite thing ever. So yeah.
Oh, I know. I know.
Oh, you know. Yeah.
Cool. And for those of you, we're gonna. Well, I'll tell you this now. Actually, this is my first time telling Brian. The point of the ranking. What we're gonna do is after we see Coco, we're going to like assign each spot in the ranking at like a certain amount of point value.
Okay.
And then we'll combine the points. Like if I give this movie like number 1 will have 19 points. Like, does that make sense? So like if my number 1 is if I put this isn't my number 1 like for all 19, but let's say Coco's my number 1.
Yeah.
That will get 19 points. But Brian puts it at 3, so we'll get 17 points. We'll add up those points,
right.
And then we'll see whatever has the most points, and then we will give you our combined like definitive
Pixar list that satisfies neither of us because it's neither of what we want, but it's a compromise.
Because all of our favorites will be in the middle.
Yeah.
And then like something that really mediocre will just rise up because like I'll put one really high and you'll put it really low.
Yeah.
So like a movie we both go like, it's a pretty good. We'll become number 1.
And we'll be like, no.
But yeah, all right, thanks guys so much. Next time we're going to be discussing Pixar's 5th film, which is The Finding Dory. Oh, not The Finding Dory.
Finding Dory.
I'm sorry, not The Finding Dory.
You said the wrong title. It's The Finding Nemo, of course.
That's the correct title. The Finding Nemo
title.
I'm sorry. I'm just used to saying Finding Dory so much in this apartment.
Yeah.
It comes up a lot. But anyway,
it does.
Thanks guys so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.